Good morning, good morning, good morning, my creative friends. I hope you guys had a beautiful weekend. I had, it was a very nice weekend, although it was busy taking care of people, which is okay. But back here in the studio, and today we begin our summer series, which is technically entitled Sowing Seeds, Bearing Fruit. And the purpose, the reason why I named it that is because my purpose here is to not teach you how to draw fantastic pictures, draw and paint, and although we are going to do so much of that, but my particular purpose is to sow seeds of creativity in your hearts, and to help you to form creative habits, daily habits, which is actually the thing that is going to make you a better creative person or a better artist. If you're already an artist and you're looking to be a better artist, I teach at a very simple level because I want all people to realize that they have creative things inside of them that that they can bring out and discover their own unique expression of creativity. And that is for everybody, not just people, self-proclaimed artists, although it is also for that too, because if I know one thing about artists, and I've been an artist basically my entire life, in some way, shape, or form, is that we do not, we tend to be big procrastinators. We wait for that inspiration and we have these spurts of creative activity, but we're derailed very easily, whether it's by life happenings, comments from somebody who is on social media that might be discouraging you, or sometimes, and I find this really prevalent for me anyway, when I'm constantly looking at other people's creativity and the beautiful, incredible things that they do, because there is so much out there. I allow it to stop me from moving forward. Oh, they're better than I am. I can't do that. They have more friends. They're prettier. There's so many things that we tell ourselves, and basically they're lies. And so my purpose in this next 8 to 10 weeks, whatever it is that we're doing. So it's like mid-August that we're going to be doing this. It's like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And my purpose is to teach you some simple ways to be creative if your time is really limited. We're going to be going through a bunch of different mediums. The first 2 weeks, we're concentrating on pencils and charcoals, because I believe that even if you're a painter, or you like to do collage, or you like to art journal, everything has a foundation in drawing. To a certain extent, even if you're drawing in your mind, knowing form, knowing how to put it there, knowing some easy ways to get to a place quicker, so that you're more apt to engage in that creativity. That is my point. It's to encourage your heart. It's to help you to form those creative habits, and teach you some really easy ways to go about doing that. So the live sessions are never quick. They're usually about an hour. I apologize for that because I can get kind of chatty. And I always think of things along the way that I think might be important for you to know. So if you don't have an hour, that's okay. These videos will be housed right here. I'm going to put them all in, I don't know what they're calling those things where you group all those things together. I don't know what they're calling them these days. They've changed them a few times. But they'll be in the regular feed, and I'll also put them in a like a little area that says Summer Series 22. So just so you know, you can always come back to it if you don't have it in you to hang with me today. So I do want to start really quick with some going through the types of pencils that they are. And again, this is for like that beginner person who might not really be familiar with a lot of materials like graphite and charcoal. So everything that we're doing this week is all going to be in pencil form. So today we're going to be working mainly with mechanical pencils. We will probably add in some other pencils. Wednesday will not be live. It will be a video, but that will go up on Wednesday morning, and we'll be focusing on charcoals, compressed charcoals, or I'm sorry, not compressed charcoals, that's next week. So charcoal pencils. And then on Friday, we're going to play with some water-soluble pencils, which, y'all, if you haven't done that, it is so much fun. I really kind of am really loving the water-soluble pencils. I kind of go through things, through periods where I feel very attached to one particular thing, and I play with it until I get bored of playing with it, and then I go on to the next really fabulous thing. So let's get to it, because I just want to briefly talk to you about the difference between charcoal and graphite, and then we're going to move right into how we want to start working towards creating some pictures in our journals. So hopefully you've made your journals. I have two. I have my my little journal that goes in my go bag, and the little bookmark that I made along with it. I finally got it all stitched up. It kind of looks like the spine there, but I don't know. It's kind of big, and I might end up using it in my larger book. So here's my big book, the Japanese side sewn binding. I will also put those videos. I haven't set that thing up yet for the Summer Series 22, but I'm going to do that right after this video so that I can start putting those there. But I will put the 3 videos from last week. It actually was like a preliminary to this summer series, and it was creating the 2 books and doing some backgrounds in them. So I'll make sure, just to kind of get prepared, I'll make sure that I put those in that summer 2022 or summer series 22 sessions. So just in case you haven't made them and you want to, it's so much fun to make your own journals, you guys. And ever since I started making my own journals, I never buy journals anymore. I love the covers and stuff of journals that you can buy, but they're, I like mixed paper. I like to do a lot of different things. So for me, that's much more appealing to me. And I like the imperfectness of the journals that I create. And sometimes I do things intentionally imperfect, but anyway, let's get to it. All right, so this is always a weird process, but I'm going to try to make sure that you're all, let's see, can see my table. And I think that is about good. Yeah, not bad. Little shadow. Sorry about that. Okay, so I have some just some mixed media paper here on my tabletop, just because I want to show you really quick. And I think that this, if you're a beginning artist and you went out and got all of the supplies that were on the supply list, which I really hope you didn't, because that was not necessary. You can absolutely just start with your little 2B pencil that they use in schools. It's absolutely fine. But if you did go out and get things, I just wanted to show you how to maybe set up a page of learning what the different things that you have now can do. So these are both mechanical pencils. They're basically going to do the same thing. They have an HB lead. So when you talk about leads, like 2B, 2H, 8B, you know, all of those different things that they will have on your pencils. Again, like I said, this is an HB lead. So this is in the middle, the very middle range. H is hardness, is hard, and B is the softer end of things. So you could have like anywhere from H to 8H. I believe it goes up to, although I don't know too many people that have those, and I haven't seen them very often, but they do exist. And the 8H is going to have a very, very light, very fine mark that it will make. So make sure I'm in here. Okay, so the mechanical pencil, and this is that HB lead, I suggest that you just go through everything that you have and start doing things with them. So create some lines, do it really softly, push a lot harder, see what kind of a darkness and what kind of a lightness you can get from it. And just to see, so that when you start working on something, you don't accidentally, say you want to do just a light outline sketch of something that where you can watercolor or whatever, and you want to erase your lines, you're going to want to use something really light that's erasable. So, and I have just a white eraser here. It's a polyester eraser, and it erases that very, very nicely. The other thing that I suggest doing is to take just a brush, like a watercolor brush with some water on it, and just kind of swipe it across. So this did not create any movement in that graphite, and that's what I expected. The harder lead, so an HB is a relatively hard lead. It's really great for creating like outlines and details. So that, very nice for that. I have a this is actually a brand new tin, and I was very excited to get that. So it goes from H and F. I'm really unfamiliar with the F. I believe what it is it's a harder lead that can be sharpened to a very fine points so you could get great detail. That's what I've read. I've never actually done anything with it, but I'm kind of excited to see what kind of things it'll do. So I can get kind of some darkness with it. It's okay. So it goes H, the F, the HB, which we did with the mechanical pencil already, and sometimes your different brands are going to do different things too. So the mechanical pencil is like a drafting pencil. These are artist pencils, so they might look a little bit different, but it's going to be in the same general range. So now graphite is the way that it's made with a loose charcoal and then a binder, or a loose graphite. Well, it's all carbon-based. Charcoal and graphite are both carbon-based, but graphite is created by adding a binder, a certain kind of a binder to it, and then compressing it into pencil form. So this is a B, and you might not really see the differences on my page here, but as I do things with them, now this is your general, this is a 2B, this is your general school pencil, this is a B, and I suggest that you do this with your things. Now, they have these colors at the bottom of them, and I think that what that indicates is the lightness of the color that you're going to get on there. So we're going to jump. I'm not going to go through every pencil. Generally speaking, I work mostly, when I'm working with pencils, I work with 4B and up. So an 8B being my favorite. So this is a 5B. And if you look at it very closely, it has more of a granular look to it, okay? Instead of a really fine look. I think when you're doing details, you want something really fine, but when you're doing loose sketches and you want your edges to be kind of, you know, not real defined, or possibly you're just not that developed artist yet, and you just want, I find, okay, I'm babbling here. I find that some of the softer leads are kinder to your abilities or inabilities, let's say. So this is an 8B, and it's going to be a lot more granular. I have actually pieces coming off onto my paper. I can see it here. Just blow it away. But it has this very rough edge around it, and I love them for doing some really loose sketching where I still want to get some sort of a definition. So 4B to 8B, this one actually has a 9B. It's probably just a little bit softer than that. Those are definitely my favorite. These are the ones that I'm going to be working with today, but mostly the mechanical pencil. Now, I do want to show you this as well. You can see that there's a little bit of graphite movement with the water on some of those softer lead pencils. Okay, so they have less binder in them, more of the loose charcoal. It's not as compressed, as hard, because it doesn't have as much binder. So it's going to move a little bit more, which is nice if you like to create those kinds of things. So then we have, again, we're not doing charcoal pencils. That will be Wednesday, but I do want to go through them really quick so we don't have to do that on Wednesday. And this is a woodless charcoal pencil. And this has charcoal pencils have a different type of a binder in them. So the binder that they're using in graphite is much denser. I couldn't say exactly what it is, but the charcoal pencils just have a different, softer binder that is used to keep them together. So they also come in different hardnesses and softnesses, however you want to look at it. This is a 4B. Oh, no, that's a charcoal. This is a graphite pencil. So I don't know how that got mixed in there. And I just wanted to show you, so this is a 4B it's a Derwent pencil. And it actually is not that much different than the 4B. Let's see if I can pull that out really quick. It's actually a little bit, maybe a little bit grainier, and actually has a smoother, like when you're using it, it moves a lot smoother on the paper than the Winsor Newtons. So these have, they have flat areas, and from what I understand, it's a higher quality pencil than the round ones. So, but Winsor Newton I find is, you know, it's really not a big deal, the brand that you're using, unless you're doing professional drawings and you really want to up your game, then you might want to think about that. But I also have, these are Winsor Newton as well. And they were from a set of hard charcoal, medium charcoal, and soft charcoal. So we have, this is a hard charcoal. So you see that it's kind of on the light side, probably needs to be sharpened, or there's something on it, which could be, because sometimes I draw into my paintings with charcoal, but not usually this. There we go, that's a little bit better. Okay, but it's a very, very light. I'm not getting a real distinct line, and I am pushing on it as well. And there's the medium charcoal. It has a much darker, more grainy appearance. And then the darker, the soft charcoal, which is probably in that 8 range, and it has a wider, more grainy, great for doing really, really loose sketches, which we're going to do some of that on Wednesday. So I like to do loose sketches in my garden when I sit out there in the morning, just to kind of get warmed up for the day. And then you have Sketch and Wash pencils. So this is General's, which is a really inexpensive brand. General Sketch and Wash. Again, this kind of moves like a pencil. It's grainy, but it's really kind of on the lighter side. Probably what that's supposed to look like. I think there's something on the end of my my light, or my hard charcoal. And this is a Derwent medium charcoal. And this one feels more like you're working with a pastel pencil. So you can actually hear it running across the paper. This is a Derwent sketching, a medium wash, but this is going to be in that pencil range. But I'm going to do a wash of water here across the whole thing so that you can see. And then the last one that I have here that I wanted to show you is the Peel and Sketch charcoal. So this is actually like just a compressed charcoal inside of paper. So you just peel, you pull down the little string, you peel off the end. You can see it, I'm getting it on my finger right there. And you can do some really dark sketching with that. It needs to be peeled right now. And so let's go this way so we can see what each of them is doing. So this is that general sketch and wash, and you can see that it really has a lot of movement. You can still see the lines, but there's not a ton of that in there, and it's leaking into the water that's next to it as well. So you get a little bit with the harder charcoal, and then this is kind of along the same line. Nice. And then the darker charcoals. So you'll just, by doing something like this, you'll get a feel for the implements, the supplies that you have, and you'll be able to see what the capabilities are of each one of those things. And then this is that Peel and Sketch charcoal, which is very nice. So you could actually create a painting just from that, or a drawing, just from that, that little bit of charcoal that I put down there. You know, you can draw some fine lines if you have a brush with a really fine, a round brush with the tip on it. You can do some big swashes. You can fill in some areas. A lot of great stuff you can do with those Peel and Sketch charcoal pencils, but you don't lose that. If you're expecting it all to go like a watercolor, it won't. You're still going to maintain that original piece that you put down there. And the more you put down, the darker your wash is going to be. So the very last thing, and this is what we're going to do on Friday, this is a Stabilo pencil. So it's called a Stabilo All Pencil. One of my favorites. They come in all colors, but I basically just have black and white. We're not going to use the white today, but they also come in what they call woodies, and they're really, really thick, which I think is kind of cool. And so you can draw on anything with it. You can even draw on glass, so it says. So if you can see that. Although I don't do a lot of drawing on glass, but there it is. So, and then here's the woody. Do the same thing. And it's just basically like a really big kid crayon, but it's really wonderful to use in mixed media paintings or collages to create alternative marks. And these are water soluble. Again, you're not going to lose that original line that you put down, but you can get some really great washes that come from that. And also the woody. Nice and dark. Look at all that. Beautiful. So a lot of great things that you can do with that, but that is for a different day. Want to hop into what I wanted to show you today. So let me move these all off to the side. And there are different kinds of erasers as well. This is a poly eraser. The white ones are wonderful. They don't leave marks on your paper, which is cool. They come in a peel off magic rub, it's called. I'm not particularly fond of these. This one just might be old and hard. I got it from somebody, but it's by Faber-Castell. Probably when you get them new, they're better. They're not as dried out, maybe. I don't know. And then this is a kneaded eraser. These are great for pastels and charcoal, a lot of like compressed charcoal when you're using those. And then you just renew the eraser by folding in all of the marks that it takes up from your paper, and then it becomes new. And they're kind of cool because you can make tips out of them so that they can really get into some fine areas. So I don't erase a lot. I like the idea of just experiencing whatever mark happens on the paper and working from that and with that. But it really kind of depends on what you're doing. So I want to do a couple. The purpose of this little one is for some practice pieces before you start working in your journal, if that's something that you want to do. So I'm going to open up to a nice white paper so that you can see it really well. I have lots of different types of papers and things in here, from scrapbook paper to drawing paper to mixed media paper and canvas and watercolor paper, all sorts of things, all in one book. I even have parchment paper, which I'm kind of excited to use. This is just wax paper in case I do something that I need to let it set or dry or whatever, then I can slide that in there. Or if I'm collaging, because, you know, sometimes we do that too. So I'm going to start in this book, and I just want to briefly show you something that was done with a mechanical pencil, and I did this a few years back. It is a poppy from my garden. We are going to do poppies today. We're going to do a little poppy sketch, and then I'm going to show you an easy way to create some sketches from using the pieces that you have as reference. So, but this was all done just with line work and just a basic outline and then a lot of line work. So we're going to kind of do something along these lines. I do have a poppy for reference. The poppies are kind of fading. This was the last one left in my garden this morning. That didn't look really, really nasty. So she's been in some water here, and we're going to maybe work a little bit on that. So hopefully you can see that. I might actually need to, maybe I could just hold it. Okay. I want to hold down this paper. There, I think that'll work. So hopefully you can see me there. I think you can. Okay, so I like to do really rough sketches, but now and then I do like to do things that are detailed, kind of like that picture that I just showed you. I used to do that exclusively, and I found that I just don't like to spend that much time working in that way. I like to do things that are much more expressive these days, but that's okay. So a lot of people are really into botanical drawings, which will have various figures on them. And usually how they're done is they will focus on the emerging flower, which that's what this is. It had it died before it could, I'm not really sure why, but it died before it could become a flower. So I took that one. This, they also like to have pictures of the seed pods. So that is the seed pod from the poppy. I have a partially open flower, which again, this one died. We must have had some really cold weather overnight that kept it from moving forward, or possibly something came up and got it. Maybe my dog, I'm not sure. But this one was just emerging. I imagine that before it turned this weird color, it was more of this orange. But you can see all of the petals folded over each other, along with the pod or the covering that it had on it. So those are all things that you would put in a botanical drawing, as well as, I'm trying not to get any water on my paper here, as well as the leaves and the stems, which are very crooked on a poppy. They're sturdy, but they're very curly and crooked, and they give the impression of being really delicate, but they're not that delicate. So when we get to the bigger paper, we'll probably do that, but sketching from a reference is a nice, really easy thing to do. I like to start from the center and work out. So kind of looking at this very center here, which on a bigger flower, this would be that center. See how they kind of look similar, but this one comes more to a point, and I'm guessing it's because it hasn't developed completely yet. But so we're going to start with that. Start with just a small circle in the center, and then it has all of these little, almost like little puddly kind of loops that come from it. So they go like this, and they're really close together. And I'm not concerned about getting the drawing perfect. I let go of that perfection a long time ago. It was stressing me out, and I just didn't want to do it. So they're not independent, though. So they do create a unified piece here. They're connected in between. So I'm going to go around each one of them, but dip down and create this this juncture there where they kind of, they're attached, and yet they have their own independence at the end there. I just love that. Okay. Just again, keeping it really loose. You can always add more details later, or some shadowing to detract from possibly some mistakes that you might make. And then I'm looking at these little, I don't know if they call them stamen, or I don't recall the things of the flowers there, but they have thin little stalks that come out from underneath this centerpiece, and then they have 1 to 2 little almost like little pods coming from them. So I'm going to draw all the pods first, and don't put them all in a row. So what I've discovered over the years is, even if you see things lined up in a row, how you're seeing them is going to change depending on how you move, how you change your looking at them. So if they all look like they're in a row, it's not going to have a very realistic look to it. So I'm trying to keep them sort of the same distance from that center thing, but I don't want them to look like they're all lined up. And some of them are bigger, some of them are smaller. And again, that will change depending on your perspective, how close you are to the flower or the angle at which you're looking at it. So if you change the sizes of them, even though they may be exactly the same size, it just gives you that impression of perspective. Okay, and I'm just drawing like ovals, elongated ovals. And this is just my example, my practice before I do the actual thing. And then I'm going to bring in those, just some quick little lines. Again, I'm not worrying about whether or not they're perfectly distanced, or even if each one has its own. I'm just doing some light lines coming out. You can do them either from the center out or from the little pods in. If you go from the center out, you're less likely to get your lines into that center thing, but you know, we can shade that in afterwards anyway, so it's not a big deal. Okay, so all of those lines are in. Again, we're just giving an impression of what is there. And I'm putting a few kind of on the outer edges, just here and there. Just being kind of random about it. Okay, so that's fine for that. Now they have a lot of petals here, and the inner petals are kind of almost look like this, except they're really long and attached narrowly here. So I'm only going to do, let's say 5. So I'm going to do one there. I'm going to do one across. And this is a trick that I learned a long time ago. You can get your things more evenly distributed if you start with your first 2 across from each other. Now I'm not going to do them right next to each other. I might end up with more than 5, and I think I will. And these are just loops. At this point, I'm not worried about detail or anything like that. I'm just getting the basics in first. Now there's a second row of petals in these. I think these are double poppies. And this second row seems to have an edge. It kind of looks a little bit like that first row, but it has an edge that's a little more rippled. I have falling things in my studio, and it's tucked underneath these. So again, I don't want that to be, I don't want to do it on every single one exactly the same way. Some of them will be detached, some of them will tuck behind some of the other ones. Some of them will just sit right next to it, like here. And I'm holding on to my pencil, or to, yeah, my pencil really, really loosely, and allowing the pencil to just move. So as these petals kind of ripple, especially in the wind, or as they grow and get larger, they curl, and they have lots of bend and movement in them. Okay, so these inner ones, I did them very, very smooth, but I can go back over and allow my pencil to just waver a little bit all around the edges of it. And that is also going to help to give a much more realistic impression and movement in the petals. So you can do that right from the beginning if you like. Okay, so then I have a last row here, and then there's some little that are kind of tucked in there, but that's okay. We're not going to do all of them. This is our practice. We just kind of want to decide how we want to go about working on our much larger pages. So I have one really large, like these bottom leaves are really big. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's actually not very many. So if you think about this in terms of cutting it in half, then be totally off the page here. And I'm just giving that impression behind there and keeping it kind of wavy. So that's approximately a quarter. I might end up with 5. I don't think that's a big deal. This is not a scientifically accurate botanical illustration that I'm working on. If you're doing something like that, you might want to be a little bit more specific about how you create your drawing. Okay, just kind of giving that background to those petals, to these inner petals. Okay. And you may find, which I'm kind of finding here, that I want to fill this in a little bit with some other petals that overlap. So, and then that's where your erasing might come in. I'm not going to worry about it in this one. Again, this is just the practice, and I can look at the practice one that I've done and say, I really should have done things closer together, maybe added a few more. So that is the benefit of practice. Okay, so you can create some darker areas with the mechanical pencil as well. But again, it's kind of meant for details. I'm just going to darken the center in around these little ovular kind of things here. I don't think that's even a word, but that's okay. And just kind of creating those dark areas, so that doing that is going to help it to really stand out a little bit more in relationship to everything else. And then maybe go through. Now, I don't like to go back and do things. So when I originally created these, like when I do my next picture, I may just go ahead and fill them in, because these kinds of things I find a little bit tedious. And they are completely dark, although they're a little bit, no, they're not as dark as the center thing, but again, we're not going for realism, and we're not adding color to these drawings this week. So that will come later. But we just want to get in the habit of sketching things, even if they're quick things, even if you're sketching your coffee cup or the eraser that's sitting in front of you, or a vase of flowers, or whatever is around you. Begin to notice those things. And maybe it's something that you're grateful for, like your cat, and you want to do a really quick sketch of your cat. It might not look great when you first do it, but as you do that over and over and you practice that, it's going to get better. So I don't know who it is that said it, but there's that proverbial 10,000 hours of practice before you become an expert. I don't know how true that actually is. It probably varies for each person individually based on, you know, whatever skill level you already have from other experiences. Don't really know. But I do know that if you draw one flower every single day, inevitably you're going to get better at drawing flowers. And if you draw the same flower every day, you're going to become an expert in that particular flower. Okay, so I have all of these other outlying areas, and I wanted to show you a couple techniques that you can do, and I actually think we're going to do it in the larger book. I can come back to this, you know, to fill some things in, but I want to show you how to, without having to color everything in, how to show depth, how to show curvature, how to show a bending or movement in your pictures. But this is kind of small, so I'm going to bring out my big book. Oop. All right. Okay, and I think I just want drawing paper, so this is good. This is a watercolor paper. I'm going to save that for some watercolor days. And I'm going to borrow one of these petals off of my flower. So you can see it's kind of cupped. If you look at it from the side, it has a lot of bend to it. It has a lot of movement. And poppies are very, very, very delicate. The petal itself is like paper. I mean, it has literally almost no weight to it. But I can see all kinds of folds and lines and things in it that you only see because of how the light is hitting it. So I do want to show you a way that you can draw this very, very easily and accurately. So if you're not real comfortable with just sketching with a pencil from what you see, you can trace. So how I'm going to trace this, and I've done this a few times before, is I'm going to start down here. Now this petal doesn't lie flat and I don't want to rip it yet. So I'm just kind of pushing it down and I'm following the outside edges of the flower. Whoop. And it might be a trick to hold it down, and I'm just doing a really light line around it, and I'm trying to follow all of those little bumps and curvatures around the top of the petal. And it will most likely, because as I'm shifting around this petal, I'm sure that my pencil marks probably aren't meeting up completely. And then this side is very smooth. Okay, so when you take that away, now these did not meet up very well, so I can just connect them there, and I'll erase that little line. So what I have here is I have a pretty accurate representation of this petal in size and everything. So you can do that with a lot of different things. Let's see, what do I have here? I have a pine cone. This is a very small one. So I'm just allowing my pencil to kind of go around that pine cone. Maybe come up from the other end. Now these little things here are not exactly firm, so I have to be careful. That I'm not cutting them off by folding them down. So that's about that size. I know it doesn't look like much now, but I can go from these pieces and create what I'm seeing here. Okay. But we're not going to work on that one. I do want to show you some folds and some lines and how to put some detail into that. But I did just want to give you an idea of some other things that you can outline. Now this is a stick, so well, it's actually a root. I think I found it on the lake shore, but it's firm, so I can let my pencil rest on the edge of it, and it will pick up all of those little bends, all of the little nubs that are sticking out. And I wouldn't exactly say that this is cheating, because I still think that there is so much work that needs to be done after that in the details and adjusting your drawing, because it won't be perfect. But it'll at least be somewhat to scale, so that you can go in and you can make decisions about what you want to do. And the other thing that I have here that's kind of cool is a seashell. So again, I'm just letting the pencil kind of bump and move around that shell. So I actually have a 2 scale kind of a thing here. And then I can just put in some, see? and then work on the details and the shading and everything from there. So it's just a really quick way to get that down where you don't have to, you can at least get the outer edges of it where you don't have to keep erasing and, you know, trying to get your proportions accurate. I love doing these, especially when I need things to be done really quickly because I'm walking down the beach or what have you. Okay, so coming back to this petal here, I want you to kind of take note of some of the dips and everything that you created up here. Up at the outer edge. And as I'm looking at it and it's no longer attached to its flower, it's starting to do a lot of folding. And you can adjust your edges to create some of those folds in there. And sometimes the petals will actually fold in like this. Okay. So to do something like that, you just follow some of the lines you already have here and then bring your line in, give it a little waver and come right back out. So this is going to give the impression of being kind of folded in a little bit. And I might want to tuck this line right here in just a little bit. Okay, so it's going to give some movement to the petal. And all I'm doing is I'm taking some of the dips and creating a larger dip right along that same area. Okay. All right. Darker down there. Okay, so we have a pretty flat flower with just a few dips. Now, this is a pretty big dip that I put in here, and when you have a ruffled dip, what you're going to have on the other side of it is really something a lot smoother. So I am going to adjust that line right there, just simply because it was very ripply, and if that petal were folded over, the edges will still be ripply, okay, but not that folded area. All right, so this is just a couple of really simple folds that you can do. You can do entire petals where, you know, you might come up and really do some deep on your original drawing once you are comfortable with that drawing process, and then you can bring in some of those smoother lines in there like that. Okay, and then that shows that folding in of the petal. Okay. Now, all of the lines in this petal are all radiating out from this point right here. Okay, so there is this white area. Let's do that here. So this is the area that I'm looking at here. And then there is a very, very white-ish area right here from where it's attached to the base of the stem. Okay, whoops, lost my petal. Okay, so all of the lines in this petal actually come from that area. And if you start with, and I'm not going to draw them all the way to this edge, I'm going to keep them outside that white area. And I'm holding my pencil really, really lightly. I'm not pushing hard on my pencil. Okay. And I also want to vary the length of the lines that I'm making. So I'm basically filling up this entire bottom right now, just to show you the idea of what we're doing here. Because as these lines go out, they get wider and they have more space in between them. But down here, they actually meet up. And as your lines become closer and closer together down here, you create a shading. So let's see if I can get a little bit closer here. I don't know if, I'm hoping that you guys can see this. Hold on a second. I'm going to see if I can put another light on this. There, hopefully that makes it lighter. Yeah, a little bit better. Okay, so as your lines get really close together here, they, how close? All right. Can you see? You guys put up a little heart if you're seeing okay. I'm hoping that you can. Might be a little hard on a phone, might be kind of small. So the pencil is kind of light, so it might be a little bit more difficult for you to see on video. Apologize for that. But again, as your lines get closer together down here at the bottom, they create like this shaded area. Okay, so a lot of what I do when I do drawings of flowers and leaves and things like that is I create a series of lines right next to each other, and that's what will create that shaded area. Now you can also use a cross hatching, which is lines next to each other that are done in different directions, and that also will create a shading. It just gives a different look. I think especially for florals, for petals that are so delicate, I think having really light lines right next to each other like that creates, and they're very light. I'm barely swiping my pencil on the paper. So, you know, if you're having trouble controlling your lines, you're probably holding on to your pencil too tightly. So just try lightening up a little bit and just creating line after line after line. Give it a little practice. So that's going to create that that shading, that impression of a deeper area, a more recessed area. So that's what that does. So if I look at this petal, how the light is hitting it right now, I have this really shaded area here that creates kind of like a cup, because these also curve in. Okay, so I'm just kind of working on some shading right now, just to show you. Like some heavier shaded areas. So I've got this cup here. And then the shading, for me anyway, how I'm seeing it, comes up like this, and then it goes back out like that. And if you curve your lines in the direction of, like in conjunction with how this petal is, you're going to get a more realistic look of that shading. Okay. Now, I don't usually shade that heavily, but that's just to show you that that idea of how to get some of those shaded areas by putting lines next to each other. Okay. Now, usually when I will work with something like this, I'll have a few of those center lines. I don't usually do it this heavily. Maybe down near here I would, but I'll bring these up, not all the way, and sometimes I'll have them next to each other, and then that one that starts here goes up. Okay. And if you follow this upper line and then take it down into that line, it connects those two pieces. Instead of them just touching each other, they become one with each other. So, and then we have more of those little raggedy little edges, and those I like to bring down in different lengths, again being really soft with the pressure on my pencil, and just kind of create some lines that come down from above as well. Okay, so I don't want to do too many of them because then it looks forced. So I'll do a few of those. You can always add more if you think it needs more later. But often when I'm shading something right here, so this is a folded over part of a leaf, and this shaded area right here, from where that's folding over, this is going to have a little bit darker of a color than everything else because the light isn't hitting it quite in the same way. So I just create some of those lines that we talked about next to each other, kind of in that arc. And I vary the length of those as well. So it gives that impression of having some of these striations in it, but also of that change in color. And it kind of gives a different value to that particular portion. So I'm not even touching that upper line. It leaves a little bit of white right there, and I really like how that looks. If you like to do it all the way up because you prefer how that looks, you can absolutely do that. It is your picture. These are just things that I've learned over the years, and that I find work for me when I'm doing these kinds of pictures. So you're going to have some waving in here as well. Again, with the lines next to each other, not so they're individual lines that are placed next to each other. I'm not keeping my pencil on the paper and creating a solid block. I'm putting lines next to each other, and it's different. It just gives a different, lighter look to it. And varying those edges is going to give it, again, a more realistic impression. And it's going to take practice. I don't want you to get frustrated. It's a pretty easy technique, but, you know, doing it many times is going to be necessary to make progress on knowing what to do and being able to represent what you're seeing. And if it doesn't look right to you, do it a little bit darker, or change the shape of that darkness, or make it even a little bit darker in between. And if you want to add in some cross hatches, you can do that. But that does change the look of that shading, just so you can see that there. Now in these kinds of curves right in here, I just like to do just a little bit and then leave that. A little bit here. Okay, so don't do that. It doesn't really look all that great. Okay, again, let's just do this one more quick time. Love how this area right here looks. So, and that is the value of practice. So when you're coming from the bottom, come from that area and go up. When you're coming from the top, don't go up to the top because you could end up going beyond it, and just bring that outer edge down in with it. Create some little shadowings in there, some more little light lines. And definitely make sure that you're going along with the shape, the outer edge shape of your petal, because if you don't, if you go in a direction that is contrary to that, it just takes away from that realistic impression, because you won't see that in nature. The lines in a leaf and a flower are always going to follow those outer those outer edges. Okay, so it's really important that you practice, that you do a little bit every day. Choose something. It doesn't have to be flowers. It doesn't have to be something in your garden. It doesn't, it doesn't even have to be particularly difficult. Maybe you simply want to learn how to draw this pencil. Do an outline of that pencil. And then just start shading it. Where are you noticing that the light is hitting? So in something like this, for instance, oops. It's kind of rolly. The ones that have the things that make them stay put probably be a lot easier. But anyway, just an idea here. Okay, so you're going to have your light. If your light's coming from above, like mine is, you're going to have that light area right down the center there. Okay. Not so much on the wood, but definitely on, it's reflecting off of this color here. So, and then your darkest area is going to be along the edges. So just start practicing like that. Maybe filling these in darker with your lines, preferably doing the lines next to each other instead of coloring them in, and then maybe doing something a little bit lighter here. And then preserving that white in the center. And when you want to bring these two different colors together, you just kind of add a few more lines right at that where they meet, and that will bring that in so that you get that gradation of lightness and darkness. Okay. So draw a pencil, draw a flower, draw a plate, a coffee cup, whatever you have. But definitely notice the shadows, where they live on whatever it is that you're drawing. And use your lines to create texture and value. So the value is the lightness and darkness of an object, or of a color, or of whatever it is that you're working on. Now on that folded area, I imagine that everything up here is all being hit by light, but right at that edge, it's going to be a little bit darker because it's curled under. So if you give that a little bit of shadow, maybe even a darker line right there, that will help to put that into motion for you. So drawing can, and this is why I don't do a lot of it anymore unless I'm really in the mood, it can take a lot of time. But knowing how to draw an object, even if you ultimately don't want to draw things all the time like this, it's going to help you to be able to see things about that object that you might not necessarily recognize when you're just simply looking at it. And it will help you to be able to paint curvatures and choose colors that are going to give that more movement and give it more structure and to give it more reflectivity or reflecting of the light above or from above. Now you can end up coloring it all in with a pencil, just doing it lighter in the reflected areas and darker in the other areas. I've seen completely colored in things that were awesome. I don't really like to work that way, but if that is what makes you comfortable, practice these techniques with the mechanical pencil first. That's why we started with the mechanical pencil, because you're going to get the finest lines to be able to see what you're doing, what's possible with your pencils. Now, if I come in, grab my other pencils here. With well, this is a 9B, and I imagine this will be pretty dark. I can bring in a little bit more darkness in this same picture, just using the 9B graphite. So I'm basically doing the same thing, but not as heavily as I did with the mechanical pencil. And it's more quickly creating some of these shadowier areas. Is that a word? Shadowier? Probably not. It's okay. So we're not about perfection here. And I'm not an English teacher, so there it is. So as long as you're not the grammar police, we're probably good. So I'm just using this this 9B to create some darker areas, because I would have had to start really pushing with that pencil in order to get it as dark as it is right here. Okay, so you can use them in conjunction with each other. It doesn't have to be one or the other. They definitely work together. Could even get some areas, some outlines, more well-defined. Okay, and remember, so I have to say the most important lesson I've ever learned, well, two, less is more. So the more lines you put in, it's just going to, it's just a different look, and it's not a look that I like. So this right here is really heavily shaded. This is much lighter, and then when you bring in these darker pieces, it makes it look even lighter yet, and less shaded in, or less solidly shaded in, I should say. But the other thing that I think is one of the most important things when you're creating these kinds of drawings is you don't want your lines to be the same. So if I use the same stroke and all my lines are like that, it's not going to look as good as if I have some shorter lines, some really long lines, some that maybe don't start up here and kind of go down here. And they really vary. It shows a whole lot more movement in what you're doing than something that is right next to each other like that, which can work, but I think it's much more appealing to me if I do them this way. So I'm really liking how this is 9B, love it. How this is starting to look with some of these darker areas, because it's really bringing out the shading and that curvature, and it's giving the piece a little bit of definition. So we're not going to be doing the entire flower because we would be here for hours and hours and hours, and I know that you totally have things better to do than watch me draw. So I just wanted to give you some techniques that you can utilize over the next couple of days. I want you to continue to practice. I like this better over here. I kind of lost what I was doing over here. I want you to continue practicing with whatever you have, doing light strokes, doing heavy strokes. Try changing the directions. Do you like how it looks cross-hatched? That's totally appropriate for certain things. It's not my favorite for delicate petals, but you know, again, that's a matter of preference. Vary your lines. Number 1. Okay, that is the number 1 thing that I have learned. And practice. That is the best thing that I can tell you guys to do. On Wednesday, we're going to continue drawing, but we're going to be using charcoal pencils, and I think we might actually do some sticks or trees. I'm not sure, but I think we're going to go on location into the garden, and that will be a video that goes up on Wednesday morning. I hope you learned a little bit from this. Again, you just simply need to practice. Try the technique of outlining whatever it is that you want to draw, and then bringing in some of that shading and some of those lines to create realism and movement and value within your piece. So I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Enjoy the it's kind of gray here in Michigan, but enjoy wherever you are at, and I will see you guys on Wednesday.